from New Haven, Connecticut. She has lived in DC metropolitan area for the past 4 years. She jokingly says that the reason she prefers to teach fifth grade is because she does not know what it's like to be a fourth grader because she skipped that grade. She loves to teach English and language arts to 2 different classes every year. She has been implementing technology into her classroom and using Kidblog for 3 years, even before her district, DC, adopted it. She uses Kidblog to support assessment and celebration through writing, and it has really transformed her teaching practices and her students' desire to write. So without further ado, I will go ahead and pass the presentation along to Tiffany.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. So today, I just want to discuss a few tips and tricks that I use to access student growth and celebrate student growth using Kidblog as an electronic portfolio. Kidblog has really been a natural motivator for my students this year, and I really saw their writing transform because I use Kidblog as a motivator and as a way to access their growth and also to celebrate their growth. And also because I had one-to-one computer access this school year, Kidblog was really infused in my reading and writing instruction. So the first thing I would like to show you are just some real life examples of one of my students, and just to show you how she has grown throughout the school year. So this was just her first Kidblog. I just told the students to write about whatever they like to write about, and just to see how they write and what their structure is like in a non-stressful way, because they're writing about whatever they like to. So as you can see in her writing sample, she doesn't really have a lot of structure. She's starting her sentences off with and her punctuation is not exactly where it should be. Just 3 days later, with some guided instruction and a tool that I will share with you in a little while, you can see that her writing is a little bit better just within 3 days. She has some transitional phrases, like you see she says first here, and for example. You don't see her starting her sentences with and she even included at the bottom a conclusion sentence and an emotional sentence to tie in to her response. And lastly, here is an example of one of the essays that she actually entered into a contest, and this is totally her writing. And you can see not only has the quantity grown, but the quality has grown as well. You can see that she's writing in paragraphs. She has, again, those transitional phrases. So she's continuing to use those skills that she mastered, but she also added on. She's using quotes and other things. So the reason why I believe students like this student here has had as much growth as they have is because of Kidblog and a tracking tool that I have used. So let me show you about this tracking tool that I use to help not only inform myself of the student's progress, but to inform the student and their parents as well. So I made a writing progress tracking checklist. And what I did was I looked at the standards for fifth grade, and I took out the most powerful standards that you see throughout all types of writing, and that really set the expectation for what fifth grade writing should look like. And all I did was take those standards and I turned them into student-friendly I can statements. And what I did also is that I used these markings secure, developing, and beginning to signify what level each of these standards the student is performing on. These standards, these markings also correspond with our report cards. So if a student or a parent had a question on why a student earned a certain marking for a certain standard, I can look back through my progress tracking checklist to show the parent and the student how they performed on each of the writing assignments that the students did on Kidblog. And I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit so you can see, for example, what some of the I can statements are. And I just used a big asterisk to, mark where the student is at each point. Again, and these are things that the student should see, or you should see from the student in each type of writing. And I also put a section for teacher comments so that the kid knows exactly how they did, but also so that I can remember what I want to work on with that particular student in guided writing. And one last thing, I made sure to include the date too, because this is accessing student growth so that you know exactly where the student was performing at a certain point in the school year. So one thing, as I was preparing for this webinar that I thought was a good idea that I wish I had thought about during the year was if I was going to use this student tracking tool, what I did was I would print it out, a few copies, one for my portfolio so that when I have parent-teacher conferences, I can easily have a tool to talk about how the students are performing and writing. I would also print out one for the student so that the student is well informed of how they're performing and writing. And also another copy, again, to have in writing, guided writing instruction so that I would know exactly which skills to work on with the student. But I realized that printing was a challenge for me this year, and it's probably a challenge for a lot of other teachers as well. So what I probably would have done and will do actually next year is that during the comment section, because I always like to comment on the students' writing, what I would do is upload this electronic copy of the progress tracking sheet so that the student and the parents can reference it. So what you would do is you would go to My Computer, you go to Upload first, My Computer, and then choose the file, and then go down to the file of the student's tracking sheet. And once it's uploaded, you just click Insert here on the right, and then that way you don't have to print it out so much. So when you have student or parent-teacher conferences, if you would like to have your computer ready, you can access it that way. And the students can also access it. One thing I will also say is that I will leave that private because it's really scoring and you want to keep student data anonymous. I would keep it private so that only the student and you are able to see it and not their peers. And then you just click comment, and then the student can click on it and downloads, and it pops up for the student to be able to access. So again, I really think that this writing tool has really transformed my students' writing on Kidblog, because not only is Kidblog a fun way for them to express themselves and for them to respond to reading, but also this writing tool really makes it memorable and makes it meaningful for them. So lastly, what I would like to do is to talk about some of the ways that I celebrate students' writing on Kidblog. So one thing that I do is on Kidblog, you know, students are able to comment on each other's writing. And I found that that was an easy but natural motivator for my students. So I did a model lesson on how to write constructive criticism and how to look at the positives and the negatives of your peers' writing. And so I found that after I did that model lesson and students were logging in and reading each other's writing and commenting on it, it almost became competitive for the students. And so they wanted to see how many positive comments they can get from their peers. And so that just motivated them for each assignment to do even better than they did before. So that's an easy way to celebrate students' growth. Another thing that I also did was a certificate. So we did data parties. And at the end of each month, because I'm just a reading and language arts teacher, I only focus on reading and writing. So I would always have a data party to celebrate their reading growth, but also their writing growth, since that was a big push this year. And what I did was just a simple certificate with the student's name. And as you can see down here, it says writing. And I put exactly what the skills were that the students mastered. So again, not only is this documentation for you and for the student, but also a way of the student being well informed and feeling celebrated on what they accomplished in writing for that month. I will also invite parents, because having parent participation really increases the buy-in for students and again makes them want to do better the next time. and we would have snacks or popcorn in a movie, whichever was, accessible for myself and my students at that time. And I found that the students really look forward to their data party. Everyone had something that they can celebrate, especially in writing, even for my lower learners. And it really, again, motivated students to increase their writing skills so that they can be celebrated the next month. So these were some of the ways that I celebrated students. And the last way that I also celebrated students, which was an easy, natural motivator, was when the students mastered a certain skill, especially when I talked to them during guided writing time, I would allow them to get on Kidblog and write about whatever was appropriate of their choice. And because Kidblog was primarily used for, academic writing, this was really a motivator for kids to learn a new skill, excuse me, because they didn't always get a chance to write on Kidblog about whatever they like to. So to celebrate a skill, I would say, okay, Johnny, or okay, Susie, so you mastered the skill of using transitional phrases, or you mastered the skill of using examples to elaborate on your topic. So now you can get on Kidblog and write about whatever you like to, but make sure you're using those skills to show me that you've mastered it and to keep practicing. And so that, again, was a way to celebrate. So again, these are the reasons or the ways that I use throughout the school year to really celebrate my students and show them their growth and to really transform their writing, as you can see in the examples that I showed at the beginning of the webinar. So if you have any questions or you're unsure of how to implement this writing tool or the data parties into your instruction, you can email me at Tiffany, Tiffany, .rose, like the flower, at dc.gov. And I'll be more than happy to modify the writing tool for you for your grade level, and also to share any other ideas that you may want to hear about how I use Kidblog in my classroom. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. And also, you are able to comment on the blog post in this webinar as well if you have any questions, and I'm sure Tiffany will get back to you in a reply if you choose to go that route instead of email her. I do have a couple questions right away for you, Tiffany, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So one of my first questions was that I asked if our students assigned blog posts, and you kind of answered that for me at the end. That students are assigned their blog post, they're more academic writing, and they get to write freely at the end to help celebrate that. But how many blog posts do you and your students write throughout the year or a week?
So because I have a pretty structured reading and writing block, what I do is we read a text throughout the week, and then usually Thursday and Friday, they write some kind of response to the text that we read throughout the week. So it's usually about one per week, unless it's something that's really challenging and really requires a lot of revision. It might be one every 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what the text is and what the writing assignment is. So we usually do one per week.
Okay. And do you provide the prompts for that, or do the students just respond to the text however they're feeling about the text?
Most times, again, because my DC uses Common Core, I write writing prompts based on the Common Core standards. So I usually give them a response to respond to.
And then my second question was, do you share the student portfolios in Kidblog with parents?
Yes, so that has really been, I think, another driving factor in the improvement that I've seen, is that parents have been so involved, and it gives the kids, something to really celebrate with at home, and it's not just me, telling the parents, but they actually get to see it. So that's been a big hit this year.
Great. And then I know DC adopted Kidblog district-wide. So my next question is, will they continue to use it and have access to their Kidblog accounts past your class, so that they can continue to build their portfolios and kind of see the growth go beyond your class and throughout their years and their times within the district?
So that's a good question. So for my class personally, they will be able to, only because I created my own class outside of the district license.
Okay.
So my class will be able to, but the way that DC has it set up, it's only for your class for that year. So after the year is up, they transfer everyone into a new class for their new year, and then we get a new set of kids in our Kidblog class.
Okay.
So that probably won't transfer over for everyone else.
Okay. And if they are using the same account for the student, then their portfolio should remain the same. They might just be placing them in different classes, but it could be working differently again on your end. Um,
Oh,
but
okay.
but it would, yeah. So if the students are able to use the same account, then their portfolios will just continue to build, which is awesome. And you really laid a good groundwork for that in your class. And you've already showed us how much growth your students have just within the year in their writing. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. Those are all the questions that I have. So again, thank you so much for taking some time to present for us on such an important topic. I know that often as you get going in the year, it's hard to take some time to look back and see how far you've come and how far your students have come. So it's really important to celebrate that growth because, like you demonstrated, it can be huge. And thanks to everyone else for listening in to our webinar. If you have any questions at all about using Kidblog, whether it's just in your classroom, within your school, or maybe a team of teachers, or like DC district wide, so students can continue to build out those portfolios, please feel free to email us at membership@kidblog.org. The email address is right there on the screen. We'll get back to you pretty quickly. If you have any questions about blogging, assessing, and celebrating student growth, anything along those lines, feel free to leave a comment on the blog post, or you can email us at membership@kidblog.org, and we'll be able to answer those questions as well. So thanks again. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you.